Sorry, I'm going to repeat since I'm actually just going live.
Miss, I'm watching the live.
No, it's not set up as yet. Give me a second.
Make sure that you're muted if you're not speaking, because we're going to hear you as well as Miss Kimberly.
All right, sorry about that. So we're live on YouTube. I'm admitting I'm a student. And again, for all of the persons who are just joining us, my name is Miss Bowen. I'm joined by Dr. Linda Bailey. I'm so privileged to have Dr. Bailey join us today to lend her support to our students here in Jamaica and show us about this wonderful app, the BrainCamp web app. And we're going to be looking at using virtual manipulatives to solve math problem, but just to have basic fun with math. And I was explaining earlier to say that we don't normally use math and fun in the same sentence. However, today we're going to be using it simply because we know that this BrainCamp app is so fun to use. Yes. When we introduced the children to the app, they started and some of the children did not come off the app until bedtime. So we know how very engaging this app can be. We'll also be looking at some of the pre-writing strategies necessary to excel in the language arts performance task. And we're also going to look on the parts of the essay, such as the introduction, the body, and the conclusion. So let's jump into the fun. With Dr. Linda Bailey and I are 6 students who we have chosen to be a part of this wonderful session. And just for ease of communication, the students are Bianca, Christina, Janelle, Kemoya, Tavian, and Wilton. All right, I'm going to hand over to Dr. Bailey so she can say something.
All right, so thank you so much for having me, Kimberly, and thanks to all the students, Bianca, Chrissy, Janelle, Kemoya, Tavian, and Wilton. So I want to tell everybody watching that we have these students who have been introduced to an app. So there are many, many apps out there. And this is one that I was using with a student locally. I'm in New York, I'm in Staten Island. And what I found is that this is a student who has not been learning in school. And he just started playing with everything. And so one of the things that we want to make sure of, I like the name PEP, it's an exam, but it's a positive word. But I want to say one thing to the students, and I want to say to the parents and educators. I'm a parent, I'm an educator, that PEP is just a step in a process that your children are going to go on to have a life. And one of the skills, as Ms. Boyd is saying here, we really want our kids, and this is beyond the kid themselves, we want Jamaica to have a new set of skills. What is happening in the world now is that there is a lot of robotics, there's a lot of artificial intelligence, and what is happening is there's any pattern to what is a job that you're doing now. There are people working to feed that pattern into a computer. So the way when I started teaching, I was teaching from the 90s. I hope I don't look it, but I was been a teacher from the 90s. I was teaching at Wolmer's, and when I first went into teaching, and this is the way I learned also going to Immaculate in the 80s. What we did, the teacher showed us a question. They showed us how to do the question. They changed the numbers, and then they give us that question with the new numbers. And what we want to say is that that is no longer going to be enough for your kid going forward. So what you really want as a parent, as an educator, we have changed the exam. The name is now PEP. We have a set of questions. So we can teach children how to do questions that are similar to ones here, but we want to actually go beyond that, right? So I'll be talking today a little bit about that after Kimberly goes talks about writing, which is something I'm still learning. I'm a lifelong learner. Maths is something I was good at. Writing is something I loved. I never thought I was good at it. And now that I'm a bit older, I'm really learning, and I'm learning to learn. And this is what we want the kids to do. We want them to learn better, right? So this involves trying. And as Kimberly talked about, it's not just critical thinking, but also something called problem solving. So I'll talk a little bit about that later. But to thank the kids for coming on. The kids are very enthusiastic learners. So they want to big up the kids right now. And we've been working with these kids, just playing around with the app, asking them questions. They've never seen these questions before, and they give it a try, you know. Don't matter if they know if the answer is right or wrong. The important thing is for them to try. And then we talk about what they try. So then we're going to even do that again today live. So thanks for having me, Kimberly. And kids, thank you for being here.
Yes. So I'll be sharing a slide. It's just a small introductory slide. It's the slide that we're going to be using throughout the session, but we're going to just start on the introduction for the slide, and then we'll move into the manipulatives with the students. All right, so I'm starting from the... Are you able to see what is on my screen?
Yes.
Great. So again, we're doing the Developing 21st Century Skills webinar for persons who are just joining online. We're going to be looking at problem solving using virtual manipulatives. We're also going to be looking at pre-writing strategies for non-fictional summaries, and the non-fictional summaries are what we're going to be looking at in the language arts performance task. All right, and we're streaming live on YouTube. So if you know anybody in particular that's going to be doing the 2021 PEP examination from grades 4 through to 6, please invite them, let them know that they can join online and learn about some of the things that are going to be very, very useful to them in the entire PEP examination. So we know that we have the ability test examination coming up on May the 25th. That's just a part of the that's just a part of the PEP examination. We have the performance task coming up in the following month, and then afterwards we have the curriculum-based test. For grade 4 and 5 students, they're not having the ability test and the curriculum-based component. They're doing only the performance task, but it's also going to be lifelong information that you can use to help you throughout your studies, even when you're complete with PEP. So it's a very informational session. We're here for 2 very, very interesting hours, and I want everyone in Jamaica to join and tune into what we have in store. All right. So again, we're doing the Developing 21st Century Skill webinar, and the presenters are Kimberly Bowen and Dr. Linda Bailey. All right, what are 21st century skills? So these are certain skills that students will need to survive in today's world. These are communication, collaboration, creativity, and critical thinking. When we speak about communication, I'm sure that everyone can attest to the fact that before 2020, the term of online classes or distance learning was a far-fetched idea. I remember when I was pitching that information to the students or the parents who I do private tutoring for their students, they were like, what is online class? And I don't think anything can come out of this online class. And that was before COVID. And now we see where 90% of Jamaica or even more had to revert to distance learning or online classes due to the COVID virus, where school was closed. We're just now opening. Some schools are still not opening. but we can say that the communication has changed. Before then, you would have to send a letter. Now you can send a WhatsApp message to somebody in Dubai, in Australia, and they can receive that message immediately. So that's what 21st century communication is all about. Collaborating, it's always good, and you're going to have this even in the workplace setting, where in your class, teacher asks you to join a group and do group work, and sometimes you don't like to collaborate with the other person because of whatever reason. But when you go into the work environment, and I'm assuming that everybody wants to hold a job, even if you're actually being an entrepreneur, if you are supposed to communicate and get productive work done, you have to collaborate or actually team up with somebody else to get some work going on. As a programmer, that would have been what I did for my first degree. You can say that no program is developed. The Facebook, the WhatsApp, all of that, it was a team effort. A group of individuals had to liaise and collaborate with each other to get these applications out, right? Where creativity is concerned, I think that says enough for itself, where in this world, if you're not creative, then you're not going to be able to stay at the head of the game. And we know the word critical thinking, that's the word that a lot of persons are familiar with just because of the inception of PEP. And it just speaks about thinking or reacting when it is quite necessary for you to do so in a critical position, right? And all of these skills, we call them the 4 C's, are necessary for us to live in the 21st century, sorry. So alluding to the fact, why are these 21st century important? As I said, they're important now more than ever, simply because, one, they provide a framework for successful learning in the classroom, but it also ensures that students are able to thrive in the world where change is constant. When I started my bachelor's in computer science, we were doing C language. Now we are introduced to other languages such as, all right, I'm going to go into something that you're not going to be able to understand, but JavaScript and code, VS JavaScript, and we have Vue and React Native and I don't want to stare off course, but just to say that whatever I learned 4 years ago or 6 years ago is not what we are learning now. Everything is evolving, and for you to, if you want to especially travel abroad and work abroad, you will have to learn to get your skill sets on par with the other students. The Indians are very, very, very industrious, and their skill set is above normal. Where if you're supposed to take on a job, say for instance in New York, and the persons that are going to be interviewed with you are Chinese and Indians, you have to be on the same level, or else you're not going to be getting those jobs. So we want you to always, and as Dr. Linda Bailey said, that she's a lifelong learner, you have to always keep learning and refreshing yourself and revitalizing yourself so you're able to manage anything that comes to you and you're able to take on the jobs that are going to be of the future. All right. So we're going to go into the BrainCamp virtual manipulatives, and the app is, I said that I would have shared this, I would have shared in my session yesterday that I would have shared my password and username. I'm not going to do that now. I'm going to do it towards the latter end of this presentation when we have stopped using the manipulatives, simply because I don't want anything to occur while we're using the manipulatives where those username and passwords are concerned. But so the BrainCamp web application, it explores ways to make math visuals and interactive with digital manipulatives. So you're doing the same thing, and we have some of these colored tiles in person, and we have the base 10 blocks. I have base 10 blocks that I have here in person that I can use. But these web application, or this web application, helps you to use these manipulatives digitally. So you're able to use your mouse or your touchscreen and move around and manipulate these little things that are there. And it's very, very interesting. As I said, if I could stay online all day and play around with these manipulatives, I would, but I'm not able to do so. I'm going to look at some of the work that the students have been doing. So we have met, and I can really say these students are very enthusiastic, sorry. And I want to just say a great thank you to all the students who sat with us when I pitched it to their parents. Everybody was on board, and the students have been so cooperative, and they have just dived into this activity, and I'm so impressed with what they have produced. So on the left here, Kemoya has made a playground using the Geo Board manipulatives. So she has her swing there, and she has the slide that you're going to climb up and go on. And Christina has used, this was a question that Dr. Linda Bailey had asked Christina to make a representation of rows and column using the base 10 blocks, and then she would have represented 2 columns and 5 rows to make 10 blocks in total. We don't have all of the students' work, but I'm just showing you some of what they have done. JNL has also made a playground with the monkey bar there, the swing, and that is a seesaw. Just look at how amazing these things look. And Tavion has represented a hexagon using the colored tiles manipulatives. So I'm going to hand over to Dr. Bailey, and she's going to be just giving you an insight of some of the things that we have been doing with the students. We're going to be going on the app that we have discussed about the BrainCamp app. So I would really want you to see what we have been doing and how useful this application is. Dr. Bailey?
Hi, Dams. Hi. Thank you so much, Kimberly. And I second that the students have really put themselves out there. You give them something to do, and then they go try it. So I don't know that they want to listen to me talk about lifelong learning as they are. It might seem a long time away, but I know when I was in school, I didn't want to hear about going to school to be a doctor for so many more years of school. But then I ended up doing it. So but right now we're just gonna be having fun. Let me, so I'm going to ask the students to do something, and this is based, I'll share while the students try. I'm gonna share what it is that we've been doing while I ask them to try. So I'm gonna put for the students something in the, actually, we show here, me. I'm going to share. So I'm going to show a little bit this BrainCamp app. So I'll just start off at their homepage. So this is something called, are you seeing my BrainCamp manipulative? I just want to make sure you are seeing. Everybody seeing it?
Yes, miss.
Thank you.
Yes, miss.
Thank you so much. So these are, I almost consider them toys. I really consider them.
Yes.
You can just play with it. When I've introduced it to kids, and even
Miss, it builds their imagination.
Yes, and after show. So in addition, let me actually go to. I'm going to actually go to a student's. So this I want to highlight, Janelle. So Kimberly did a wonderful thing, which I say is the best way. When you introduce the students to the app, the first thing to remember that I consider myself a big kid, but the kids themselves, you want them to have fun. And this goes to the idea of lifelong learning. If they are just doing the maths to do an exam, what happens when the exam is over? Do I need to know the maths?
Not necessarily.
You can't tell me. Yes, please. You still need to know the maths, right? And so what You need to know the maths beyond
No,
the
what I was saying is that based on how we have been doing it, is as if though when they start.
Yeah. So when did you finish there? The idea is that the kids have to have fun with the maths, as Kimberly was saying. You know, the maths is actually, I personally find it fun, and a lot of people don't, and I think it's the way they were introduced. But if you are one of those people who feel that way, I would encourage you to really just play around. So this is you can see this is a pencil with an eraser. Now this was done.
Nice.
Oh my God, it's so pretty. The colors. I say Janelle is gonna be a fashion designer or something, because I can see an outfit coming out of this. The colors go so well together. It's so beautiful to look at. So what Kimberly did was she showed the kids the app, and they were introduced to it this week, and just said, create something. Right? And so you can use the shapes there, and you can do anything. There are many more pictures that the students have been creating. So I want to actually show you a little bit about that, but I want to ask the kids to actually do something. I'm going to show you for teachers who are on, I'm going to go through it, and just a little bit, I want to ask the kids to do something. So we have been working with these kids a couple of days, and what we want to do is just talk about maths and take some time to explore maths. So we were doing this question. And here's this is a hexagon. And we asked the student, can you make this shape from the other shapes? And it doesn't have to be the same size. This shape is a hexagon, which the students were I say, see this anywhere, and they were able to say, it's a stop sign, right? A stop sign has 6 sides, and this is what it says, a hexagon, it's 6 sides. And then we got into a whole discussion, okay? So the students have to remind me, whose picture was this? Was this Wilton or Tavian, or who did
Mine, miss.
I'm not knowing whose voice that is, as I met the students. Kemoya. Yes, so we took his picture. So what he did, he took this shape, which I'm not telling anybody what is this shape. We're going to have to research. So one of the things that is very important as a skill, we were talking about different shapes that are on the left side. So I'm going to go back to the main manipulative space. So this has about, let's just mix here. This has 12, I hope I'm adding right, 16 manipulatives. And one of them is called something called pattern blocks. Okay, so here are these shapes here. This is what Janelle used. She took the shapes and she made other shapes. So one of the things that you can do with this is Janelle has made this very interesting shape. You can define the areas here as a particular unit, and then ask them to approximate what is the area of the whole picture, right? So this can lead into discussions on math, and that's what happened here. So the question the students have to form a hexagon of any size with any shape, right? And so Kemoya created this particular combination, and this is a shape that has something that he has not learned the name of as of yet, right? So I'm not going to tell him why, because he can look up what we knew, right? And what we start to explore is that these were quadrilateral. These were 4-sided shapes. So the hexagon had 6 sides. And then we got into a discussion of a pentagon. What is a pentagon? Well, that has 5 sides. So I'm going to actually ask the students, and this is what we have been doing all week. We're simply exploring math. You don't have to use this one. I'm going to choose a different one. I'm going to ask the students to make their own shape. I love this thing that's called a Geo Board. So it looks as if you had a board and you put some nails in, and the nails are equal distance apart. And as we were discussing pentagon, I'm going to ask the students, this is what we're doing all week. We're going in and we start to do something, and it branch off. We start talking about pentagon, and you create a pentagon. And I'm going to create a pentagon, but I'm going to ask the students to create a different pentagon. So we said a pentagon is a 5-sided figure. So these over here are virtual rubber bands, you imagine? So I'm going to create a figure, and then we're going to check when I make my figure if it has 5 sides. So let me, and I did this before. The students have never done it before. That has how many students, how many sides does that have?
4.
Is that a pentagon?
No, miss.
What after make another side? So look what I'm going to do. Now we can count our sides. I have 1 side, 2 sides, 3 sides, 4 sides, 5 sides. So now I'm going to ask the students to just go in. You don't have to use the same one I use. You can use anything you want. And can you create a pentagon and share your code in the chat? So I want everybody to know the children have not been asked to do it before. We were doing hexagon before. Now we're going to ask that. Oh, thank you. Thank you. Okay. All right. So I'm going to say, I'm learning as we go along. So I've just met the kids. So Kemoya, she's the one who did, which one? This one here. Okay. All right.
Miss, and the green one as well.
Oh, yes. Okay. So actually we make a point that came up in our earlier discussions. Kemoya shared her, so we're going to see now when the students actually create a new shape. We're going to go here. There's a way to actually share it. Once the students create it on their screen, you can share, and they're going to give us a code, and so that code is what Kemoya gave me. And she did form a hexagon, not just with the 2 of these shapes, which I'm going to say to the students, they can look up quadrilaterals and see what is this called. So one of the things you want students to know, they can look up things themselves. It's not just the teacher that's going to be giving the information to students, right? And so it's very important. For example, I teach university. It's very important we start to say to students, what can you do with your own learning? You don't know something, if you see a word, you don't know what it means, you can look up the word. Everybody have phone, Google, and can look up a word. So here we have a shape that came out as we were talking about quadrilaterals. The students are very enthusiastic, and that has 4 sides, and there are different types of quadrilaterals, squares, parallelograms we introduced, but I'm leaving this shape as a mystery shape for the students to look up quadrilaterals and come back and tell me what is the name of that shape, and they can do it, okay? And so it's very important that we believe in our students that they can do something, and it doesn't have to be correct. We're learning here. I'm learning how to use Zoom, and students are showing me and giving me information. So if I make a mistake and you can't see my screen, you have to tell me about it, students. So now we're gonna leave this. I'm going to share. So I shared in the chat. Let's put back the question. And we will continue to share the students' questions. So here's the share code. And so this is a cool thing about this app. You can create the questions in advance, and then you can give it. So I'm putting this in for the chat. So the students can see what I did with my pentagon. They can clear the whole board and use this manipulative. They can also go anywhere else and draw. So you can go, some of these things just have plain maths. So if you just go, for example, into the color times, the student can actually pick up a marker and just draw. So they don't have to use the app necessarily to show their information. Okay. So I want to talk while the students are working. I see Janelle already has, I see already the students are showing me answers in there. They're very quick. I can't even get a chance to talk.
Tavian sent a code as well.
so we're gonna, I have a plan of things to say, but let's take a look what is Tavian doing now. We're gonna talk about it. So we're gonna go, he shared his code in the chat. So when you go back to the apps, below the apps, when the students have done their particular design. All right, we go. I'm going to now see what they did. So Tavian created a 5-sided figure, and you want to get also children in the habit of checking, right? So when you do a problem, sometimes you make a mistake. Don't always assume you're right. You can have another student check. And we have 5 sides. So there we go. So let us see, Janelle has something. We're going to copy her code. I'm going to be able to see what Janelle did. So let's go back out to the apps. And I'm going to paste. So this is the 3rd day that they're using it. And they're really very profitable. So Janelle is using, I haven't even used this feature. She's using a fill feature. But what can we do with it? We can do a lot of maths with this, right? So we do have to check this. We check the sides. Is this 5 sides? So Janelle has gone beyond. We can do some maths with this. We can count. We count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We have 6 sides. Okay, so it's irregular. But there's a lot of maths here that we can actually unpack. And I'm actually going to talk a little bit about that. So one of the things that we have been working on while we've been playing around with it the last 3 days, well, last 2 days, is area. So Janelle has made a beautiful picture here. And I would love to ask the students, do we know? So one of the questions we have been asking, been doing something called the area model, right? And so what we have, Janelle has these windows here, okay? And so we're going to look at the windows. And one of the questions we've been asking, so wherever the exploration leads, you can go off on a tangent there. Sometimes you can stick to the program, but the children are interested in a particular thing, can also take off from that. So this blue thing here, we defined the distance between 2 of these. And imagine this is again a board that you have nailed things in. You have nailed some nails in equal distance apart. And we're going to define this as 1 unit going between one nail and the other nail. And so this is also measuring 1 unit here. And so what we describe this area in the blue rubber band as it's a 1 unit square. And so one of the things we've asked the kids is to say how many times can we get the blue unit square. And I'm going to define a space that I would love them to know out of the yellow area in this house. So that's a question. And students, can you put it in the chat, yellow area in the first house? How would we figure that out? I'm going to actually try to draw. I'm going to try to draw Janelle's house. We have to measure, right? And that's what we, but give it a try. And then we're going to talk about it. So the other students have some pictures. So let's take a look. Kemoya has a picture. So we're going to go back. So all of these pictures actually get saved. So once you have the code, the picture will be saved. Oops, I took out, that didn't copy it correctly. Hang on. So it has to be V. Oh, wow. So we have a lot of interesting things here. Let us count the sides. So we have 6-sided. So we have hexagon chemoids also. And so what we've been finding, of course, the kids, there's a 5-sided figure here. So there's our pentagon, and there's a 6-sided figure. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, the hexagon. And then we have another shape here, right? So the kids will be having some fun with this. So you can also use the area. One of the things you want the kids to learn about is area. So you can literally count how many unit squares, right? So it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So one of the things that students at this point will be learning is about area models, right? And so they should be able, you ask them to create, and we can actually have that as another question. I see a lot of chat. The kids are so enthusiastic. It's, I mean, I keep getting, there we go. We have more things to look at. I'm gonna look at Wilton's now. Let's go here. And again, even though I'm going to wipe out, I'm going to go to a different screen. You just have to put in the code and you can go back to whatever they've done. So let's see what's Wilton's picture. And we have another 1, 2, 3, 4, 5-sided. And Janelle is making more. And we're going to come back. Kemoy, I do see your answer to the question. And we can check it out. So let's go back. So the kids can create much faster than I can even look at what is going on. All right, so look at this now. So let's count the sides. Let us see. 1, I'm counting on the gray figure. In fact, I count how many? So I see the blue figure has 3 sides. So what is that? I put it in question. So one of the other things that I like to do, which I forget sometimes, is to type the question. How many sides? We have 3 sides on the blue figure. What's the name for the blue figure? And so this is our from Janelle. So anybody can type in their answer in the chat, or you can say it. So what's the name of that figure? So Tavia, that's a 3-sided, a triangle, right? So be confident. And now we're going to the gray figure. What's the name of the gray figure? Thanks, Chrissy. Anybody want to guess? Tavian, how do you know? Wonderful. Right, Janelle created this gray figure. It's a pentagon. How do we know it's a pentagon? Anybody can answer, not just say, yes, there we go. We can check it. We can count directly. Sometimes I like to check by writing it down. Sometimes I can look without, but I like to check. I like to check my answers. 5 sides. So wonderful. So you can, everybody out there on YouTube can't see the chat, but the kids are piping in the chat. We know it's a pentagon because it has 5 sides. Now, I just want to notice that this 5-sided figure looks different from this 5-sided figure, right? So we want to kind of, so it's an irregular shape. It's not the usual, right? And so we want to get everything don't have to look one way, right? So we want to be very, very clear. Just like you have a triangle, and I'm going to add to Janelle's drawing, but Janelle's drawing is still there in the world. I'm going to go, purple is my favorite color. I take the purple. I can do a triangle, and the triangle, it doesn't have to be the same size and shape, right? That's also a triangle. I like to see a lot of colors, right? As long as I put it Look at that. That's a different triangle again. So we can also create these shapes once they have 5 sides, right? It doesn't have to be what we call a regular shape, right? But this is the kind of exploration that has been happening with this. And so we're going to go back. I had a question long time, and Kemoya has put in the answer and is waiting patiently. These kids are amazing. We're going to look now at this. Kemoya has given me an answer. Let us check the answer. Kemoya says 20. Anybody else want to type in their answer? How many times can I get the blue square, the unit square that is, out of the yellow part of this first house? So I'm going to draw it in now. I like to use some colors. So I'm going to use the blue. Okay, let me erase my original definition there of, I'm going to erase the writing. And I'm going to change my color to blue. Here's one square in the yellow part. So I'm going to just write it. I'm not going to draw out the square every time. 2 unit square. That's my second unit square. 3, 4. So I want you to notice the, what we call, so they would call the base, right, of the house there. There's 4 across. We have 4 across, squares going across. Let's count now. 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. I am not counting the area, but now when I look on Kemoya, I think Kemoya, did you include the whole rectangle?
Yes, Miss.
Yes, Kemoya did count this, all the squares in the whole part, which is actually enclosed by the yellow rubber band. So I have to make it clear. So Kemoya knows what she's doing. I have to make clear what the area is. So one thing I could have done is actually clear this a little bit. And I'm going to, Janelle, your house is still there with the code. Don't worry, I'm going to take away some stuff just to make what I'm asking clear. Let me see if I can do that. And Janelle is gonna have to show me how she did the fill in the colors, because I'm new to the app as well. All right, here we go. Let me clear, I'm gonna clear my, I'm going to clear. But don't worry, even a sidewalk, she has put in there. This is just beautiful. So I'm gonna try and remove everything. Let's see if I can be successful. We are all learning here. Let me see if I can leave the yellow part. Ah! All right, I'm going to redraw it. So I went 4 across, or Janelle went 4 across.
Miss, you can press the small button down the bottom to get it back.
Which button? The undo?
Yes, Miss.
That is wonderful. Let me, let's see. I think I can only, how far oh yes, there we go. All right. All right, so I'm gonna leave this here. I'm going to redo it a little bit over here, because I think I might erase, it looks like I'm erasing too much. So the shape that I was saying was in yellow. How many times can I get the blue thing? I had a different shape in my head than what Kemoya answered, but you can also talk about that. You can talk about how many of the blue unit squares, the window, can we get out of this? And Kemoya is correct, we can get 20. And we know that because we have, oh, did I do this right? I have to do the same thing. I have to double check here. Me right, we have Kemoya. This was Janelle, not Kemoya, created this actually. 4 squares going across. And then we had 5 squares going down. So what we have been working on with the students, how do we write that? It's 4 squares by 5 squares if I talk about the squares across first. or what we call the base. And then the 5 now would be how tall the house is, or what we call the height. And so this is known as the area representation. It's just one way to do an area, called the area model, right? So what I can do is I can ask the students a different question, right? And again, we're exploring, right? The students can create, just like we created a pentagon, and we can see the pentagon look different. This has 20 unit squares in it. So I'm going to ask the students a new question, and this is what we have been doing like for the past few days. We can ask the question. Let me go back to BrainCamp. Oops, BrainCamp. We can ask the question, and this is what we want to get the students into. We want them to be exploring. Questions are going to come up, issues are going to come up, and most importantly, things that they may not necessarily have seen related to what they're doing and learning, but not necessarily the exact same thing. What we don't want to be doing is only teaching the questions on the PEP, because what happens then is if you see a question using the same type of knowledge, you're supposed to be able to apply it to new contexts, right? And that gets us into the area of problem solving. So I'm going to go now to create a new question. And what I'm going to ask the students to do, now ask them to create a different shape. So I'm going to go back to this shape that we were on here. So this shape is 20. It has 20 units squared, or what we call 20 square units. This is the language that we use. The units of area is not centimeters or inches, is inches squared or centimeters squared or meters squared, right? The unit, you have distance where you measure the side of a piece of paper or a box or your own height. But when we're talking about an area with 2 dimensions here, we are talking about squared units. And the idea is how many times can you get a square made with 1 unit on each side? So literally a square out of any shape. So what I'm going to ask the students to do, they are able to look at a shape and tell how many squares we can get out of it. So I'm going to do the opposite now. I'm going to ask the students to create. You can draw it and demonstrate also. You don't have to use, you can use any of the apps. Create a shape, any shape with 20 unit squares inside, right? So I'm going to share the link with the students, right? And then we're going to see what they come up with. I'm going to try to get in some of the other things I was trying. Oops, let me have to send it to everybody in the meeting. So what we'd like now is I'm going to give the kids a little bit of a chance to work on that, right? So let's give them a couple minutes. I'm going to pause it. Kimberly, want to mention anything else about what we're doing? I'm going to pause for a minute. Hear my sharing of screen. And I'm handing it back to Kimberly while Janelle already have something for me in the we have to come back to that. Passing down to Kimberly for a minute. Okay. Okay. All right, love you.
So I hope everyone has been tuning in to the informative session that Dr. Linda Bailey is doing with the students. This is very good insights. I love the manipulatives. I love to see what the children are doing. Every time she gives the students something and I see them coming up with an answer, I'm like, wow, this is so quick. These students are just really at it. Know that your student, for teachers who are tuning in, and for parents, I know that your children will be also interested in using this BrainCamp app. You can see there, it's not as if we're even doing mathematics. We're just literally just playing around with this app and having so much fun while learning. And I think that's what the epitome of learning should be about. I'm going to be sharing the information right now on our YouTube channel. I'm going to be sharing my username and password, and then you can go on the manipulative and do your own practice. Okay? So I'm sharing that information now on the website. I'm sharing the username. And I'm also sharing the password. And with this information, you can go on the BrainCamp app and you can try to use some of these manipulatives as well. Use the same, if you're seeing an uppercase for the username, also if you're seeing an uppercase for the password, you can copy and paste, but you're supposed to type in the information just as is. All right. So I've just shared the information there on the YouTube page. I'll share it later on our other social media platform. But it's always good, as I said, to use the information that you're provided with, or use the resources that you're provided with. You don't want the exam to finish and you had all this access to so much different resources and you did not utilize the resources. And as a result, you're not matriculating the way you should have matriculated had you used the resources that you were provided, right? So after this session today, do not sleep on this password and username. Do not sleep on the information that you have been given. Use the information, use these resources. They're well-researched resources. A lot of effort has been put in to compile these materials, both from the persons who created the Braining app to us who research and try to learn how to use the app so we can give you that information, sorry. So, as I said, this is very good insight. And in such a time as the COVID pandemic that we're in right now, where we don't have the full support of our teachers and the whole school body because we're not able to be there in person, embracing and liaising and collaborating, it's very good to still use the resources and this is what 21st century is about, being able to collaborate remotely, being able to define all the odds and use all the resources, and there's no excuse to you not doing well simply because of lack of resources. There's so many information. The BrainCamp is just one of the information. If you're here with me on my Friday sessions, you'd see where I would have shared information for the ability test. And I just have a small amount of the information. Just think of all the information that's out there on the World Wide Web for you to access and learn how to use. Some students have never been in, some persons have never been in a university classroom or never been in a class, and they watch YouTube videos and they research information online, and they're avid programmers or avid game developers or making soaps or whatever it might be, whatever you're good at. The information is out there for you to utilize. So if you're presented with information, please utilize them. I think Dr. Bailey wants to say something.
Yes, I wanted to share. So one of the students, the students have been working about 5 minutes now. So you give them a question, they work for about 5 minutes. I wanted to share what Wilton did. Wilton created a shape. So he put in the chat his code. And so I just want to share my screen and just share what he did. Right. So if that's okay, I'm gonna do, let me share. So Wilton did a shape, and as we can see, it's 2 squares across and it's 10 squares down. And what that gives us inside is 20 unit squares. So when this is different from, go back, did I erase the other one? We have a shape here. Again, it's a rectangle, but it didn't, I want you to notice, it didn't have to be the same shape, okay? So the kids, you can ask them, try to do this in a different way, and they can figure it out, right? And so you want to get them. So what I'm going to challenge the students to do, and I have to ask the question, so I've just met the students, Kimberly has been working with students. Do the students know about area of a triangle? And the students
Yes, they
can tell me
should.
too. So this is this is what we're doing. We're exploring. So even though we are covering the curriculum, we are also exploring. And so the students are answering, and Chrissy has her picture too, and Janelle has pictures. So this is what's happening. You ask a question, the students get time, and then we are getting a lot here. So let us check it out. Let's see what they have come up with. And I have no idea what they have come up with because we're live. Okay, so that the code did not work. So I have to ask you to try again to get the, so just to click the share and copy. And we try again. I'm going to try now. I got one from Chrissy. So let us try Chrissy's code. Uh-oh, my copying. I need to work on my Zoom copying over here. All right, going back to, let me go back to. So I'll also talk about what happens if the students are sharing this and something is happening. Let me see, did that copy correctly? Okay.
Very nice.
So we are creating I think we have many more. Let's see. I'm gonna try to figure out how many unit squares can we get. So we have many. So again, the kids are going to lead you in this maths exploration, right? And this is what you want. You want the kids to be enjoying themselves. They're covering the math. So look here, we have a rectangle in purple. What is the area of this purple rectangle? How, and what's the other way we say that? How many units squared can we get out of this rectangle? Well, we're going to check. As we know, the area of a rectangle is base times height. What is really asking is how many squares do we have going across here? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And anybody can tell me if I counted incorrectly. And then we have 2. The height of this rectangle is 2. So then I know I'm going to be able to get 14 unit squares out of this, right? So now we're going to come to the area of the triangle. I see a green triangle here. I'm going to call it triangle. Let me just call it triangle A. Can any of the students say, what is the area of triangle A? And you can type it in the chat. So what I want to talk about in terms of problem solving is that we have questions here that are related to what the students have done. So we've been talking about area, the area model of multiplication, which is how do you represent multiplication, right? So we write something like there's a 2, that's a shape, it's 2 by 7, right? It's beautiful. Yes, I see Kemoya is loving Chris's. And the students are loving seeing how each other they're doing different things. So the students are seeing, for example, at the pentagon, I create a pentagon, but somebody is going to create a different pentagon. So we have to look, we try to keep a little focus too, but we are getting it in there. This is the area of a triangle, and we have a triangle A. So any students, Kemoya they're creating more answers than I can look at the moment. Kimberly wants to look at Kemoya's and then talk about it in a minute. But anybody can tell me, how do I find the area of triangle A?
Miss, to see how many of the other triangles I can fit inside of it.
Well, we're talking about square units.
Oh.
I think we would have developed something triangles, but how do we, I'm going to redraw it separate from that. This is how many across. How many units I have going across here?
3 or 2.
Well, we're going to count. I always like to count, and I have to write sometimes. Between the 2 nails is going to be 1 unit. So I'm going between another 2 nails, 3 units between these next. So this horizontal distance, we're at 4. So that's, I'm going to copy Chrissy's shape, but separately down the bottom. So I'm going to start the same place that she started. I'm going to make a line parallel to her base, which we were talking about parallel lines earlier. And now how tall am I going to make this triangle if I'm copying Chrissy's triangle A?
Miss, on 3 nails.
I have to go up 3 nails. Let's see here. So now I've copied, it's like I move Chrissy's, I copy it down, right? That is going to be when you're going to go to high school, that will be called a transformation, right? So
Yes.
Playing around with this stuff, just even copying the shapes is the same idea. I've just shifted it down 1, 2, 3, 4 units. Playing around with this, the students are going to learn stuff that they're going to use later, right? And it's advantageous to play like this, because one of the things that's going to happen is they're going to learn stuff, and honestly, they're not, they don't know that they're going to do transformation, but they're learning it anyway. So now look at what I have here. I have, if I went, I'm going to form something, and this is just, again, one way. Suppose we didn't know how to find the area of the triangle, right? So this is important. Sometimes we get a question and we don't know how to do the question, but we know something that might help us figure it out. Okay, so we were talking earlier, the area of the rectangle here was the base. The base, that was 7, right? Times the height, right? So suppose I never know the area of a triangle. Does anybody know the area of a triangle? It's okay if you don't know, that's why we have to learn. We have to try to figure it out if we don't know. So we have students ranging from grade 4 to 6. So some students may have covered things and others may not have. And again, the time has not finished. But we know the area of a rectangle. So guess what I'm gonna do? I am going to form a rectangle, because I think maybe it can help. I know a rectangle. I don't know any area of a triangle, but I'm going to form a rectangle. I have this base here. And I have this height. So now this new, let me come, and I like to use purple. That's my favorite color. I'm going to make like a purple enclosure here. So what's the area of the yellow rectangle in the enclosure? Anybody can, so I'll give everybody 1 minute to look at that. And we have to come back. Kemoya, don't forget your code there to see what you did. Wilton is telling me 8. So how did you figure that out? What did you do?
I counted the squares at the top, and then I counted the squares at the bottom. And the squares at the top had 4, and the squares at the bottom had 3. So I multiplied it, so it became 8.
So we can counted the squares at the top. So we're going across. There was 4 squares, and we know that we're going. This is 2 squares tall. So then we know if we have 4 squares across and we have 2 squares down, it's a 4 by 2, or what we know that we're going to be able to get 8 squares out of that. So what we really do is we have 4 squares in one row, right? This is my one. And then we have basically have 4 squares 2 times, right? Or literally 2 times 4 squares. If I go again, this is my second row. So this is what multiplication is. We have 4 things 2 times, right? So this is again known as the area model. But what I want to do now is ask you students. So we have 8 units squared for the yellow rectangles. So how does the area, and again, we haven't done this before with the students, so we are literally learning and exploring. How does the area covered by the triangle? You have some questions where you're planting in a garden. We have that garden, and the garden is the 8 square units, and we only plant that green area there. That is the triangle that was made earlier by Chrissy. So how does that compare? I'm going to erase my. Thank you, Chrissy, for asking me to repeat. I was about to say that I should better type it in the chat. That's one of the things that I often forget to do. Can you tell me what you see when you compare the green triangle to the yellow rectangle? So I'm going to give the kids some time to think about that. I want to actually talk about something as we're coming here. So sometimes people ask a question, whether it's your teacher or somebody else, and you might not know the answer. Even as a teacher, sometimes a student asks me a question, and I'll tell you, I have to confess now. When I first was teaching in the 90s, the confessions of a former math teacher in the 90s, I had, at that time, a student asked me a question and I didn't know the answer, but I didn't even realize I didn't know the answer. And I told him what I thought as if it was the answer. And years later, it is very much haunted me. I wish I could find back that student and say, it was a very, very provocative question. It's like something I had never thought about before. And so sometimes somebody asks you a question, you don't know the answer. And so you can say, well, let me think about it. And I can think about it and I say, well, I think it might be this, but I don't know. So we have to check it out. So we're gonna try our answer. We're gonna say, I think this is the answer. You know, we never did this before. And so the students type in there. Okay, so there's my question here. I think I have to. So the question is, how does the area, so we're thinking of the area, what is covered, like if you cut a piece of paper and you put it down over this now, over this green triangle, and you cut a piece of paper the shape of that yellow rectangle, how does the size of the paper for the green triangle and the size of the paper that you're cutting for the yellow rectangle, how do those compare? And Kemo, I see the students are putting so many things in there. We have to look. We're going to come back. We're going to try to wrap up with Chris's, right? But we're leading on a tangent here. How does the area of the triangle relate to the area of the rectangle? And so this is an interesting thing. So we have an answer here, and then we're gonna make sure we get to the other pictures of the students. And so Wilton is saying the triangle cuts the rectangle in half, right? So this, the triangle, right? Right, that's a fraction. So right away, we are doing so many things from this triangle. Turns out, if you look at it, it's half. What does it mean that this triangle is half of the rectangle? It means if I cut a piece of paper like this again, I'm gonna be able to rotate it, right? And we can do that with different shapes. So we can, I don't know, maybe the kids can figure it out for me. If you're doing this with paper, you can literally cut another green triangle there, right? So you have your Geo board, you cut a piece of paper, that's the shape of the green triangle, you cut a piece of paper. What you can do, you're gonna be able to take a copy, as it were, of the green triangle, and if you just rotate it around, and again, these are things, rotation, this is stuff that's gonna show up for these kids when they are doing CSEC, right? I just rotate it, you fit it over here, the area of two of these triangles is going to fit into that yellow rectangle. So what does that tell us? That the triangle is half the rectangle. You can look at it as the rectangle is two of the triangles, right? But these are the kind of discussions that come about. We wanted to get to more of Chris's too, where our original question was, we're looking for 20 unit squares. So this yellow triangle, it's actually showing up here as well. So there are a lot of shapes. There are many different ways we could find the areas of all these triangles. So I want to make a note of this triangle here. Before I go, Kemoya, I'm going to look at yours soon, and Janelle, yours as well. I want to note this very different looking triangle here that's in blue. And let us look at, we have 1, 2, 3, 4 nails. That's made with 4 nails, I think, going across. See, if, now not 4 nails, 1, 2, 3, 4, yes, 4 nails. Do I have 4 nails? No, let me take this off. I'm trying to take it off. I might have to X out of the whole thing. And try again, 4 nails across, 1, 2, 3, 4. I keep going extra. This is very forgiving that you can actually do this. I have 2 nails there, 3, but in terms of the units, top of this is a base, right? It's a horizontal distance, the base of the triangle. But look at how this is made. I don't just go straight down, go 1 over. And then I go 2 down to get, again, this is a transformation. This is what they're gonna be learning in high school. And they can do that just by replicating and playing around. You can ask them, how much do you move over to the left and down? They can actually count how much they move. Or you can tell them, take this shape and move it, right? So all of this, even though this is taught in high school, this is all stuff they can learn now, right? So there are many, many things that we can do when you're playing with actual physical stuff. It's very much that the children can definitely understand. Children can probably copy any shape. If I ask the children, can you do this same shape? Actually, let me ask. If I ask the children to replicate this shape, just make their own shape looking exactly like this. Again, how many sides? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Well, this is a 5-sided figure here. So we have even another pentagon. I think Chrissy has made every shape that we have been discussing over here. Even this shape which we haven't named, more pentagons. Wow. So I want to talk about this a little in terms of looking again at our rectangle. So I'm going to put another rectangle. I have to use all of my colored bands. I haven't really used pink here. So if I'm going to make a rectangle to enclose this whole thing, right? So now this is very interesting because if we look here, this is 4 squares across and 2 up. This whole thing is 8, all right? This triangle is not half of the rectangle, okay? So we have to be a little more savvy about this. And I'm gonna challenge the kids, and the kids haven't, this is exploring. So the kids haven't done this before. I'm gonna ask the kids, and again, don't know the area of the triangle. The area of this triangle we know was half the area of the rectangle. So can anybody tell me what is half of 8? We know the rectangle was 8. Let me correct something here. I'm seeing it right now, but I didn't see it before. This was 8 units. We call it 8 units. Squared is one definition, but I'm going to use the term that I actually have started using here. The area here, we have 8 unit squares. So sometimes we're not always complete. If you notice after, you can always tell me and we will relate to the students. If I don't put, we have 8, we can get 8 of these unit squares. And again, we defined 1 unit as the distance between 2 pegs. But now we have a challenge level question for the students, which is, how do we find the area? So in terms of, so Chrissy created this whole thing and we're really trying to explore, but I think we're gonna come back to that with the time running out. We have so many interesting, we can try to figure out each of these shapes individually, but we can also, if we don't know the area of the shape, we can look at this around. I want the children to think about, and they haven't done this yet, and this is the idea of problem solving. What do you do when you face a problem that you haven't been taught how to do, right? We see this with COVID. We see this with a lot of things that the world is facing now. There's a lot of stuff going on, and we say, well, we don't know how to solve them. We need students who are learning in the classroom, in our education system. Boy, we see something we never learned. We have to try to find a way to figure it out. So I want the students to try to figure out this triangle is not exactly half the rectangle that I surrounded it with. So how can I figure out the area of that blue triangle, right? And so as well, Chrissy, and I'm going to talk about this with Chrissy's big shape, and then we are going to go to, we have 2 more shapes to look at from Kemoya and also Janelle. Let me use, what color haven't I used? I think every color has been used here by Chrissy. Let's see. But I want to know now, I'm going to actually use the same strategy. If I were to create a rectangle all around Chrissy's, because trying to find all these individual shapes, it's very challenging. It's a lot of them. If I went all the way over to enclose the entire shape, I was trying to figure out whether Chrissy had a shape of 20 square units, meaning I could get 20 unit squares out of it. And we're going to see, we have to count across here. So that big giant blue, we are going across 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. I have to count out loud. 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. So I've gone 13 squares across, and I have 1, 2, 3, 4 down. So how many unit squares can I get out of a rectangle that is 13 by 4? That's one question. So I think we're gonna save probably some of these questions. So I want to make a point to find Chrissy's shape is exactly this blue area, except that I would take away, I'm going to label this now triangle B. And if I actually replicated triangle B there, it's 2 across and three of these in terms of distance down. So we could actually subtract this area from what the 13 by 4. So I'm not gonna do that now because we have been, Janelle and Kemoya have been patiently waiting. So, but I'm gonna leave it with Kimberly and her students. How do you find the area of the blue triangle? Because it's not half the rectangle. right? The rectangle that I created there. So we have to be careful about that. So now, students are going to, I see Janelle has a code, Kemoya has a code. I think Kemoya had put hers first. And Chrissy gave me the answers. I'm trying to show things here. So Chrissy gave the answer. Half of 8 is 4 unit squares. So this square, actually, I'm going to write it. It's 4 unit squares inside of this triangle. Meaning that if we were to cut up a piece of paper, that's 4 unit square, we could keep cutting up and rearrange it. And it would cover the area that's in that triangle. It's the same area as 4 unit squares, like rearrange. Wow, and Janelle is telling me 13 times 4, yes, it's 52. But we're running out of time. We would definitely want to get to Janelle and Kemoya's pictures. And somebody else, can you show me the area that is, what's the area of this new triangle? Let us give things names so we're not confused. What about triangle C? We know now that is similar to our yellow rectangle there. Triangle C, that again looks like half the rectangle. So what's the area of my new rectangle here? 1, 2, 3 down, 2 across. So let me type it in the chat. Always have to try to remember to type things in the chat in case we forget what the question is. What's the area of the purple rectangle? And that purple rectangle is 3 squares high and 2 across. So I'm going to call it a 3 by 2 rectangle. So Wilton is answering that 6. So going back to Chrissy's shape, and I'm going to type just because I can type faster than I can write at this time. Chrissy's shape, which is an irregular shape. Chrissy's shape is 52 minus, as Janelle and Wilton are telling me, that rectangle is 6. We know the triangle in that particular rectangle is half of the rectangle. Not all triangles are going to be half of the rectangle that can surround them. But now Chrissy's shape is 52 minus half of 6, which is 3. So that is 49. And again, students, please check my maths if I get that maths right. Is 52 minus 3 49? I could be wrong and I could make a mistake. Do we agree with that?
Yes.
But I want to say, we can check. I would love to. We could keep going forever. And we're going to go look at Janelle and Kemoya's. But we want to also, even though you think, so we think 52 minus 3 is what I want to show you is that you can check. Let's go. We have so many things that we're talking about here. We want to get, before the time is out, to discuss what Janelle and Chrissy did. So I'm going to go back to checking now. We came up with, the question was to create something with 20 square units inside. So we actually ended up with a shape that's 49 units squared. So not quite 20, but we got to do a lot of fun maths. And so we're exploring, but we have to check. So we're going to do another check now. 52 minus 3, we're going to go to another app. So I like to, we can share, I'm going to ask Kimberly, we have to just save the chat later and share it with, oops, that's not the different. So if you do a trial on BrainCamp, they have a 30-day free trial. And if you do that, they will you can any of the codes that we're using, you can actually just punch it in and the pictures will be there. This is a great question to have the children try to figure out the area of these different shapes that Chrissy created. All right, we're going to the app. We're going to check with another app. 52 minus 2, you can check. I like to check my answers, even if you say, boy, I'm very good with subtraction. Sometimes we're not, we're not going to be right. Sometimes we might be, if you're like me, a little sleepy. All right, so I created a number line. So I'm going to go back to this. This is a number line app, and I absolutely love this app in here. So what you can do, the number line that it defaults to is 100. But we're checking the answer. So students, even though boy, I'm confident this is the answer, we want to allow also for the fact that, we have to check. Sometime we might be a little sleepy. Sometime we might make a mistake somewhere. So let us check. I'm going to change it. So there is my question. My question is 52 minus 3. And what I want to do is I want to kind of move some of, this is a very, very giant, this is a very, very giant number line right here. I'm going to start. So what is this telling us? This math expression is telling us we're starting at 52. And after we check this general, we're going to come right to you and Kemoya. And then the negative is telling me that I'm going to go left. And the 3 is telling me that I'm going left on the number line 3 units. So what I'm going to do here, I'm going to change the label on this number line, -1. That means this jump is going to be going 1 unit to the left. So I start at 52. And I'm going to go another one. That's 2 units to the left. Oops, I X'd out of it. I'm adding. And I'm adding again. So I added 3. I moved 3 units to the left. So where do I end up? What is this number? As the students confirm, this number right here between 48 and 50 is 49. So this app can use to check things like multiplication, repeating the number of jumps. We don't have time to get into that. But there's so much maths you can explore, and the kids love to just play around and create the pictures. So now we are going to go. Chrissy was first. I'm trying to find, I have so many things in the chat, trying to find. Chrissy, can you put in your code again? I'm going to go to Janelle's code first, and then we go, Chrissy, can it, for this, well, Chrissy did the areas, Kemoya's. I have to find Kemoya. Can you please put back your code? Let's go back to, and I'm telling you, the kids just, I mean, they blow me away with what they're creating. You ask a question, they're creating something. If it's not the answer to your question, we can talk about checking. How do we know it's not the answer, right? And the biggest thing you want to do in, so one of the things I want to mention is a book by Geo Board. I'm forgetting the name now, I think it's Mathematical Mindsets or something like that. But she was talking about going to a classroom in China, and one of the differences between classrooms in China and the US, and she said the kids don't mind talking about their mistakes. They don't mind sharing what they do in case. So I know students, when I ask in my stats class, somebody to go to the board, what students would say is they don't want to go to the board if they're not correct. And what the conversations I've had with math educators is, well, if somebody who knows the answer goes up and write the correct answer on the board, all those mistakes that are in the class, those never get discussed. And what happens when you discuss all answers, basically the ones that are correct and incorrect, is you get to talk about how do we check, how do we know that this answer is incorrect? How can we check? And it leads to a lot more learning. So when I check, so we can count again. Right, so this is Janelle's. Kemoya, can you put the just repeat your code, because it's far up into the chat. So I think we're gonna look at it next, but I'm searching through the chat and not seeing it right now from I think I found it. Okay. All right, so But we're gonna check. And so the original question was create a shape with 20 unit squares inside, and Janelle created this. And so we're gonna check. And what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna break up the shape a little bit to do my check, because there's a lot of shape. So we can do two things. We can break up the shape to get the area. This is an irregular shape. So what does that mean? We can't just do base times height and get the area of this. But we can have some strategy. This is made up of shapes that we know. This is a shape. This is 4 going up and 4 going across. The same distance in terms of number of squares going over and number of squares going over. So therefore, that's the area of a square. So it's just one side is 1, 2, 3, 4. So the square area here, this is a 4 by 4, right? And so that's how we can add that to this area, which is a rectangle. And this is 1 here. And this is 1, 2, 3, 4. So now we have, this is now 1 by 4. And we have another shape here, and this is 3 squares across. This is 3 and 1. So this is 1 by 3. So we can write the areas in there of those and add them up. So we have 16 squares in here in our first shape. This is a 1 by 4, and we know the area of a rectangle we're just discussing is going to be the base times the height, the base being 1 and the height being 4 here. So that's 4. And then we have another shape here, and that is 1 by 3, right? So we add in 16 plus 4 plus 3. So the question is does that have 20 unit squares inside? Let me type in the chat. Does the irregular shape have 20 unit squares? So give everybody a chance to think about that. But what we want the students to do, try to create the shape. But once they have created the shape, to check. So you have to have a way. You create the shape, and then we have to find a way to check. So one of the ways they can check is they can actually give it to another student, and don't say, so the student asks the students to create different areas. So one can create a shape with 20 unit squares. One can create a shape with 15 unit squares. And then don't tell the students what the number was for the other student, and then have them count how many unit squares, or as in the case of Chris's shape, what you want to do. Then, there's a lot of, I think I went out of Chris's shape. But we saved the code so we could always get it back. So you want to be able to check. So the question is, if I add 16 plus 4 plus 3, what do I get? So the students are saying, right? So I'm gonna go back to the number line, right? So let's go back to the number line. I love to do the number line. I'm gonna go, so we're starting with 23. And I want to go from 23. I go from here. I have a shape with 23 unit squares, but I want a shape with 20 unit squares. So students, what do I have to do if I'm trying to go from 23 to 20? What do I have to do? Have to take away 3 squares. So I want to make the point here. It don't matter where these squares get taken away from. So if I take the square from the middle, right? So I'm going to redraw a shape and then I'll shading. It doesn't matter where, if I take it from here, if I take it from here, as long as I take away 3. So I'm going to redraw Janelle's shape. Right? But I'm going to leave out I'm going to leave out 3 squares. I'm going to leave out these 3 squares here. So I just join it. And you can draw it, you don't have to use the rubber band. I'm going all the way. I'm going to go 1, 2. So I have 1 unit, 2 units, 3 units, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. And then I went 4. Janelle went 4 down here. And I joined almost the same shape that Janelle drew. But I'm taking away this one. It don't matter where you take them from. But once I take away 3, I'm going to be left with 20. So I'm going to be left with this little one down here. And now we have a shape with 20 unit squares. If I count the squares inside here, it's going to give me 20. Okay. So always check your answer. Give it to a friend to check. Not in the exam, but of course, while you're working and learning with Miss Kimberly. And so we're going to now go, right? You always check your answer. Have a way to check your answer. You figured something, go back and check, do a double check. Ask a friend if you're in the class and you're doing something like this, just to check your picture or your code. We had one more picture, I think, from, and we have time for it. One more picture from, there are so many things I wanted to talk about, but I hopefully that we have learned. But the kids took us in another direction, and that I think is the cool thing about this. What I've ended up doing when I'm playing around with this is the kids take you in another direction, you see, and still cover all the material while following the interests of the kids. And I want to give Kimberly time to so let me go. I see Kemoya's code, and we don't want to forget about let's check it now. So the other thing I wanted to just note here, at least with the number line, is you can also look, if you're going from one to the other, you can actually just add and then count as well. For students who are counting, you want to go from non-number to how much do you have to take away? Well, you have to subtract 1 3 times or 3 times 1. So there's a lot of really interesting uses which can't necessarily go through all of them. Wait, oops. So I have to copy back Kemoya's. I didn't copy it correctly. We went back to Janelle's. All right, but take time to explore you have a question, you start a question, the students are going to do things, and you can lead off from there into other material. Wow. So we have a lot of shapes. We have 20 shapes. And again, this is now I'm looking at the blue enclosure. We have an irregular, once again, we have an irregular shape, right? And you have different ways you can do this. Going back to the shape from Janelle, another way we could have found the area of this is to make an enclosure of a shape that we know, such as a square or a rectangle, and then subtract the areas that are not covered by the picture, right? And so definitely encourage the students to try that second method. Again, it's a check. If you do find the area one way, try to figure out another way. Usually there's more than one way to do things. But wow, look at this. This looks like a giant water slide or something. Maybe it's like Dunn's River Falls or something like that. All right, so here, this now, the question is this a shape with 20 unit squares? Okay, so we have to make sure that students understand when we're asking a question, what do we mean by a unit square? Okay, so when you see this, this is very huge. I'm gonna create a shape that's 20 unit squares. In fact, we have a shape here. It's 4 across 5. So as one of the checks can create a regular shape with the unit square, I can actually create a square, a rectangle rather. Let me use a different color. Let me get, I hope I can take out just that little thing and not everything else. Okay, let me use a bright color there. Let's use, I like purple, but I don't think it's defined enough. Let's use green. I'm going to go, we know that 4 times 20, 4 times 5 is 20. So I can go 4 across, right? A distance of 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. And I can go 5 down. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. If I create a rectangle as a 4 by 5 in here, then I know that I can get 20 unit squares. So we have to redefine what a unit square is. A unit square, I'm defining the distance between these 2 nails. Remember, this is like a Geo Board. You can make it yourself at home. Take a piece of wood and just nail some nails in equal distances apart. So the distance between 2 nails, I'm calling 1 unit. And so this is going to be over here. If I have a square and it's 1 unit tall and the base is 1 unit, so all the sides are the same, I'm calling it a 1 unit square. All right. And so this is 20 units, but it fits inside the whole shape. So that other shape, the blue shape, must be bigger. Okay, so we want a shape that if I draw squares like this inside it and I count them, it can only give me 20. But I love the shape because we can do a lot of things with this shape. Kemoy, we can go inside and find the area of this. We can find the area of this. So I would definitely, Kimberly, save all of these codes. Well, area might not be. Area is something that they're gonna do later. I don't know how much emphasis is given on the PEP, but all of the things they are playing.
It is going to be coming on the PEP exam.
Area. So
it was administered at the first PEP exam.
So they can really explore area with this, right? And so you can ask them to create shapes with the area or ask them, if you give them. But one of the things, and I don't know if the PEP asks this, one of the things, the questions that I find very interesting that people do, and people kind of struggle is when we went to school, it was area of rectangle is base times height or length times width. And then they give you the numbers for those and you do it and that's it. So this idea of taking an irregular shape, trying to use the information to apply it to some shape you haven't seen before, that's the kind of thing, the kids haven't seen the shape, they have to figure it out. Those are the kind of skills that even though you're covering the PEP, you want to be trying to get those kind of skills that the kids are going to be able to try to figure something, and they should be helping each other. You don't want to keep by themselves, sharing ideas, what you think, what you did, and talking about each other's pictures like how we were talking about. So I'm glad we got to see everybody's picture. I would love, Kemoya, if you could find the area of your shape that you got here for me, right? And the same thing, create more shapes and try to find it, the areas. So if I kind of took out, let's see if I can get it back. Okay, I took out the one that we were doing with Chrissy's. But she has so many interesting shapes in there. The kids can explore that, and by the time they're done exploring that, they're gonna know area inside out. There's nothing that is gonna come that is gonna phase them. And so that's what you want to create, kids that get used to new things in the context of what they are learning now. They actually created their own questions here. you know, and so I think that's far more interesting than anything I could have created and brought here. So you as a teacher, you kind of have the conversation starter. I'm going to stop and hand it back to Kimberly now. You know, I could talk maths all day, but I'm going to hand it back. Thanks for having me. And kids, you are just fantastic. I'm going to want to cry. They are so beautiful. And I love the maths. I said, I had a name for you. I was going to talk about. You are math makers. You're creative. You are creating the math here in this, and I just love it. I'm going to turn off my video before I start to cry. You kids, it was just great to meet you. You're wonderful. I look forward to the great things you're going to be doing. Very creative. I love it. All right. Thanks for having me, Kimberly. Really privileged to be able to spend time with the kids. I'm going to stop my video now.
I'm really impressed also, Dr. Linda. I did not believe my students could do these things. Honestly, I'm extremely elated. We're going to be saving all of these codes and sharing them on the website and on the YouTube platform. It's just amazing what these kids did today. Again, I want to express a warm and a huge thank you to Wilton, Bianca, Christy, Janelle, Tavian, and Kemoya just for participating. And these children have been so assiduous. They have not made an inch of complaint. They have worked with us. This is day number 3. And it's just amazing the results that we're going to get from these children in the future, simply because of their attitude and how they have run with the information and the resources that they have been given. Very good children, very, very good. And even though, and yes, Dr. Linda could talk forever about math, and we could not even feel as if we're bored. I didn't even know that we were doing work, honestly. I really felt as though we were just, learning and having fun. Really, really, really very informative, and it's just a beauty about how everyone really participated.
I forgot. There was one thing. So thanks to the kids, there's one thing I did want to show them, which we never got to. We decided that it was too much, but the kids have outdone themselves. I'm going to share one last thing if I have time to do that. Kimberly, do I have time to say one?
Yes, go ahead.
I'm going to share again the screen. And so this is something, again, so the kids are taking PEP in March. And I say to any parent who want to try, this app has a 30-day free trial. So you can just play around it. There are other free manipulatives out there with this stuff also. But this is something called algebra tiles. So there's a little algebra in the that I don't know that we did algebra. I don't remember we did algebra when I was going in primary prep school age. But this is a cool thing because you can actually, I'm going to turn off this just to explore. See. Just have the kids create shapes. Just have them take it down and just create a shape. And it's just about playing with things and just playing with it and seeing what happens. So in each of these apps, there's some mathematical concept. Have the kids just go in. One of the things that I really like, we explored this, but we didn't really do it today. But one of the issues in Jamaica with some of our students is something called regrouping, which is to take that you have 10 units. And I'm going to go here. Do I have 10? Let's see. I'm going to actually even put more than 10. I have 10. Let's try, and then we can go around it. Oops. I maybe need to move everything down. And you can actually regroup, and if they have 10, you can put it and you can see, and this is a great thing. So then you tell the kids this is 110. You have 10 units, it's one column here of 10 units. So this is a really cool thing for regrouping, but have the kids just go in and just have them click around on everything and check it out, and they'll be learning as they do. It's great for the grade 4 especially. They have a lot more time to really play around. So you know, start them early. So it's about playing around and discussing then what is the math. So I think this is really, I really love it. And as far as we can see the kids, as you said, the kids can just sit here and keep playing and making pictures. And you can take those pictures as a teacher and you can teach the content from this thing that the kid has created. And I think that that's been kind of the cool thing, is to see what the kids create when you just leave them to play around with it. And you can take a lot of maths in here. But that's it for me.
All right. We would have stopped at 2, but because of the information that we're getting, I have decided to continue for an additional hour. We're going to give the students some break. They're going to go on a short intermission, and we're going to resume at 2:10 with the pre-writing strategies. So we would have done some mathematics, and we're going to move into our language arts part of the session. After the information, I'm going to allow the students to get up and shake off a little bit, have a little snack, do some things that they wanted to do during the session that they weren't able to do. And then we're going to join once more at 2. I'll still be here with you. I'll be talking. I will be sharing all the information that I'm privy to, and we can, you know, continue to learn and have fun. This is such an informative session. I have learned so much myself, so much things that I can impart with my students that I'm teaching. I'm sure that you have learned a lot too as well. And it's not too late to join and share all the information that you're getting now with your neighbors. You are not doing information any justice when it's kept to yourself. It's better to share, let them know that the session is still going on. They can come in now and join and still learn information. So with that said, I'm going to allow the students, you do not need to exit the conference. You can mute your microphones and move away from your device and go ahead, and you have 10 minutes to go and just walk around and shake it off a little bit, and come back so we can move into the latter part of our session. I want to extend another warm thank you to the students who are here participating. I cannot thank you enough for just lending that kind of assistance and learning with us and sharing and showing other children how good it is to participate and show your capabilities and be able to learn while you're having fun. Very good, everyone. All right, so you can go away now and come back in the next 10 minutes. We're at 2 o'clock. And as I said, this is where we would have ended. We're not ending though. We have more information and we have more nice things that we're going to delve into after the intermission. All right. All right. So we're aware that the examination has been pushed back to March 20th. That is a good thing. We have more time to prepare. As soon as the ability test exam is finished, we are going to move steadfast into the performance task preparation. Now, in order for you to excel or succeed in the performance task examination, the 1 month between the ability test and the performance task is not going to be enough for you to get enough practice, simply because the performance task exam is a different kettle of fish. It is more challenging. Okay. Sorry about that. It's more challenging. It requires you to do things that you have never done before in the previous examination. And you have to learn certain skills for the, I'm having a bad feedback. For the mathematics performance task, you will have to problem solve. You would need to learn the different steps of problem solving, and you would need to know different strategies. Okay, I'm going to look into that. Give me a second. All right. Sorry. In order for you to do well in the language arts performance task, I'm extremely bad feedback. Give me a second. Sorry about that. I was checking on my other device. All right. Yes, so as I was saying, you do need to know other things other than what you're given in your classroom, specifically because the teacher won't know all the different things that are going to be coming on the examination. In order for you to be able to solve any question that will come on the examination, you will have to have specific techniques and strategies that you're going to be using to go through these questions, all right? Dr. Linda Bailey would have looked at some of the problem solving strategies that we can use, and specifically using the virtual manipulative. but I'm going to be delving into how to pre-write and some of the strategies that you can use to excel in the language arts performance task. Now, for the previous exam, the GSAT examination, we were only asked to answer some multiple choice questions and write an essay or a letter, whatever it was, from a writing prompt. For this examination, the PEP examination, we are asked to not only write something, but we're also asked to garner information from sources. This is what you call a non-fictional summary. So you're reading one or more sources and taking information from that source or from those sources and using those in your writing. But how do you do that? Many students plagiarize because they're not able to take the information from the source. They don't know the different techniques and the different ways of how to pull the information from the source so as not to plagiarize the information. So when you ask a student to write a report or to write an essay from what they would have been given, most of the students take all of the information from the paper and drop it on their paper and call that an essay. That's not an essay. It's not done properly, and you won't be getting the full marks for that, what you have done. So you have to learn the specific strategies, and that's what we're going to be looking at in the next couple of minutes. Are all the students back? I'm giving everybody the next 2 minutes to come back into the classroom, and then we can start on the latter part of our session. Sorry. So as I said, it's a specific way as to how you go about doing these questions. And what you would have learned earlier is going to be helping you on how to answer the mental ability question, just because you're going to be thinking of it openly rather than thinking of it one way. And as I said, the PEP examination is still a bit foreign to us, simply because it was only one sitting, especially of the performance test and the curriculum-based test. We would have only had 2 sitting of the ability test, but it's still a bit new to students, teachers, and parents, and a lot of persons still have clothes over their head. We're hoping that after this session, some of the things that you would have had challenges with are ironed out, and you're better able to do well in your examination. But not only for the examination, just overall, because you will be seeing these things coming over and over again. So if you're in grade 7, you're doing the CSEC examination, you're in college, you're going to have to do some form of writing. You're going to have to pull information from sources. Even if you're reading and it has nothing to do with your academics or what you're doing in your classroom, you want to be able to read and grasp the information that you're reading. So these strategies will help you to do so. And if you're ever supposed to write for a scholarship, write for a job application, write for whatever it might be, even in your casual writing, to write to mommy or to write to auntie, and everybody will see that you have learned something different. They will see in your writing that you have improved just because of how you are presenting yourself. You are presenting yourself. Sorry. I think it's safe to say that we can get into the second part of our session. All right, somebody is still waiting to get back into the session. Let me give them another 2 minutes. Again, this information is privy to all of the students who would have joined today, all of the individuals who would have joined today. This information is not circulating otherwise, unless you're extremely researchful, and then you can find this information, but it's not explained in this layman term. It's not explained as vividly, and it's not gone through in its entirety. So you can clearly see from the start to the beginning, from the start to the end, how to actually write the non-fictional summary, right? So this is something that you really want to pay keen attention to. This information is going to be very useful. And upon finishing this webinar, you will know how to write a non-fictional summary. And I guarantee you that your writing will look different, and you will be able to decipher what is in the sources, and you will be able to present your information in a clearer format, simply just because you know what to do. All right. I'm going to go ahead and continue on the presentation. I hope my screen is showing. Let's start the presentation now. All right, so as I said, we're looking at non-fictional summaries, and we're basically looking at the writing process. How do you go about from seeing that information on the paper and how you translate that or change that into what you want your essay to look like, all right? So the parts of the writing process are studying the meta text for features of the text type. In this case, we are going to be looking at an informational research report. So when you see that source, the first thing that you're going to be doing is basically studying to see what are the text features. You're looking at the headings, you're looking at the different text features coming out in the body of that essay, whether it's compare and contrast, whether it's a detailed text feature, where they're just giving details, whether it's a cause and effect, where they're presenting causes and then showing the effects of these causes. That is something that you would have to study once you get your source, right? Once you have gone through the source, you are going to look at the writing prompt. And the writing prompt is where you see task. You're going to see an example of the writing prompt so shortly, where this writing prompt is giving you instructions of what you should be doing in your writing. You're also going to be reading the sources and gathering the evidence or coding your evidence. You're going to organize the evidence to suit your writing task. You're also going to be thinking about the evidence. What does the evidence say? What does it mean in your own words? And how it matters to your purpose of writing. Once you're finished with thinking about your evidence, you're going to plan on writing your task. And then even before you're able to hand in your work, you're going to do a first draft. And the first draft is just basically jotting down the evidence, the ideas, all of the things that you would have done previously in the pre-writing process. And then you're going to be making that editing and revising your written work so it is free of errors and you did all the things that you had set out to do before, and then you can submit your writing. So let's look at unpacking the prompt. So when you unpack the prompt, you can use a PASTT graphic organizer to unpack the prompt. The P stands for purpose, and the purpose of your article is to describe or to explain, or other strong verbs such as outline, highlight. When you're looking for your purpose in your writing prompt, you are going to underline the sentence that tells you what you want your readers to understand. The A stands for audience. Who is your audience? You're going to draw a box. In your prompt, you can draw a box around the word that tells you who will read your article. There's also the strong verb. And the strong verb tells you your purpose of writing. So similarly to what we said earlier when we mentioned the purpose, describe and explain are your strong verbs. These are the verbs that tell you what you're going to be doing in your writing. And then you can also circle the strong verbs in order to highlight what they are. We also look at the topic in the prompt, and the topic is what you're writing about. You can underline the words that tell you the topic by looking at the word that reoccurs most. And usually your topic is 1 or 2 words. It's not usually a sentence. That sentence is usually the main idea. Finally, you look for the task. And the task is what kinds of information you will need to include in your article. You need to underline the words that tell you the type of information that you need to include in your article. So let's look at a sample writing prompt. But before we even look at the sample writing prompt, I want to ask some of the students in my class, why do you think it's important for you to figure out your task? And how will that information affect how you write your article or essay? I'm looking for the information in the chat. Anyone can go ahead. Why do you think it's important for you to figure out your task? You can start with that question first. Can anybody let me know why do you think it's important for you to figure out your task? Still waiting for the responses. Why do, let me type it in the chat. Why do you think, in a response on Tavian, why do you think it is important for you to figure out what your task So why do you think it's important for you to figure out what your task is? I'm seeing something from Tavian. You will need to identify the task so you will know which information to include in your article. Very good, Tavian. All right, now, and anybody can answer, even though Tavian answered the first part. How will that information affect how you write your essay or article? How will that information, if you know which information to include in your article, how will that information affect how you write your article or essay? Let me type it in the chat. How will that information affect how you write your article or essay? Anyone? I'm also going to be looking at All right, so I'm seeing something from our YouTube channel. Someone says you can identify the key information that would be necessary to the task you're given. Sorry. All right, I'm going to copy the information and paste it in the chat on YouTube. So the other students who are not in the class can also respond. This says, how will the information that you just found out from doing the task is going to help you in your writing? That's another way of rephrasing it. How will the information, which is the task, affect how you write your article or essay? All right. Let me help. Because as I said, the language performance task is still a bit challenging to us simply because all of these things that we're learning are new, they're foreign to even the teachers who are teaching you, right? You have to be very, very industrious to be out there looking for information, using the information, and trying to create some of these tasks or actually complete these tasks if you're a student, so you can be able to familiarize yourself with this information. All right, I'm seeing somebody responding on our YouTube channel. It says it will affect the way you write and set up, and along that it can also help you to gain knowledge of ideas to use in your writing. Yes, very good. Also, what it will do, it will eliminate you writing unnecessary information. So for a lot of students, even if they write 2 pages of things that are not supposed to be included in their essay, they do think that one, they're supposed to still get the same marks because they have written a lot of things. Now, the ministry is not concerned with how many things you write. What the ministry is concerned with is that you're writing the information that you're asked to write, and that's the task. The task tells you what type of information you should be including in your writing. And once they look at the task and they see that you did not include that information, you will not be getting a mark, or you won't be getting the full mark simply because you did not include the information that was necessary for you to get that full mark, all right? So for you to figure out the task, that will help you. So you're concise in the information that you're putting in your article and that you're avoiding unnecessary information. All right, let me jump back into the slide. So let's look at the writing prompt. I hope my screen is being shared. Let me just look at it. All right. So the prompt says, you are a member of your school's environment club. This month, the club wishes to inform the students of how certain activities that people engage in have been affecting the environment. And you're going to write an essay describing the effects of human activities on the environment. Sorry. So we're going to be unpacking the prompt, and it says that you are a member of your school's environment, and we're going to go back to the PASTT graphic organizer, and we're looking for the purpose, and the purpose says that you are supposed to be looking for information that tells you what you want your readers to understand. So at the end of your writing, your readers should understand this, right? And it's either to describe or explain. So let's go to our prompt, and we are looking for the information that tells us what we want our readers to understand. Sorry, before I go to the answers there, I'm going to jump back into the chat here. Does anybody want to tell me what they think their purpose is? Sorry, what they think the purpose is in this prompt? It's okay if you do not get it correct, that's fine. As Dr. Linda Bailey would have said when she was in our session earlier, a part of learning is getting the information incorrect. You learn when you got it incorrect, and then you're being corrected, then you learn from that correction, all right? So I'm putting back the prompt on the screen. I'm going to make sure that my screen is being shared. Let me check on my screen share options. Okay. So I'm looking for the information that tells me what I want my readers to understand. So it says that you are a member of the school's environment club. This month, the club wishes to inform the students of how certain activities that people engage in have been affecting the environment, right? An essay describing the effects of human activities on the environment. So I'm looking for the information that tells me what I want my readers to understand after they have read my essay. And the line that says, how certain activities that people engage in have been affecting the environment. That's the line that tells me what I want my readers to understand. So at the end of the writing, my reader needs to understand, thank you very much, Tavian, how certain activities that people engage in have been affecting the environment. Yeah, so that's my purpose. All right, let's go to my audience. Who is going to be reading my essay? So it says you're a member of the school's environment club. Now that word tells me that I'm going to be in a school setting, or those words tell me that I'm going to be in a school setting. It says this month, the club wishes to inform the students. So I think I've got my audience there. So I can clearly say in yellow, my audience. All right. Coming an error there. Well, the audience is the school, yes, but more importantly, the students in the school, because those are the persons that you're informing. All right, let's look for my strong verb, and my strong verb should be in green once I've toggled to the answer. So I'm looking for the verbs that are telling me what I should be doing in my essay. And the verb that I'm seeing here is describing. So in my essay, I'm going to be describing something. So that's my strong verb. More importantly here, I'm going to be describing the effects of human activities on the environment. Let's go back to the PAST organizer. So I'm going to be looking for my topic, and my topic is going to be highlighted in blue in my answer prompt. And I'm looking for the word that's occurring most. So the word that's occurring most here is environment. I'm seeing environment occurring on 3 occasions. I can safely say environment is the topic. And finally, we're going to look at the task. And we said the task is what kind of information you will need to include in your article. So let's look at the information that we should include in our article. So we have our strong verb there in green. So we're looking at the prompt once more, and it says that you're going to write an essay describing the effects of human activities on the environment. So I think it's safe to say that the task, the information that we should include in our essay are the effects of human activities and how they are, the effects of human activities on the environment. So let me go over that once more. So the purpose is here in red, which are the certain activities that people engage in that have been affecting the environment. And we can see that the audience is our school, our students. The strong verb is describing, and the topic is environment there in blue. And our task is the effects of human activities on the environment. All right, after we've unpacked our prompt, and every task, every performance task that you're going to be given, whether it's grade 4, grade 5, or 6, it has to have a writing prompt. The writing prompt is usually under the task section. All right. So let's look at the next thing that we're going to be doing in our writing process. And the next thing that we're going to be looking at in the writing process is gathering the evidence. Now, when you gather the evidence, you're going to be reading the sources and gathering or coding the evidence. Let's see what that means. So when we code the evidence, we're going to look back at our PAST organizer and we're going to see what the task is. In this case, the task was the effects of human activities on the environment. And then this information tells us what kind of information we will be looking for in our reading. So we can think of what letters we can use to code this evidence. So it says the effects of human activities on the environment. So we can use A and E to code the evidence. We can use A for all the human activities and E for the effects on the environment. So anywhere in our source where we see human activities, we're going to put an A. And when we see the effects that these activities have on the environment, we're going to put an E. Let's see how we do that with our source. So this is our source. The source is habitat loss. And I'm going to quickly read through the source and see how best we can put the A's and the E's. And it's already there. So habitat loss. When people cut down forests, build cities, or make roads, they destroy habitats, the places where plants, animals, and other organisms live. Let's look closely at the effect and the activities. So the activities are the people cutting down the forest or building the cities or making roads. And the effect of these activities, when people cut down the forest, when they build cities, when they cut down the forest and build the cities and make the roads, they are destroying the habitats, are destroying the homes of animals and plants or other organisms. So that's the effect. Let's go into the next paragraph. So it says, deep in the ancient forests of the Pacific Northwest west live some of the oldest and largest trees in the world. For centuries, Douglas firs and cedars have towered above the forest floors, but these majestic trees are only part of the rich areas known as old-growth forests. They are home to hundreds of plant, animals, and animal species. Old-growth forest used to extend across the Pacific Northwest, but these precious habitats are quickly disappearing. In some cases, logging has destroyed the forest animals' habitats. So the other activity there at the bottom is the logging, which is the same as cutting down the trees, but trees are cut down for different purposes. So this purpose is logging, and this is an activity that the human is doing. And as a result of this activity, so this is a cause and effect relationship. The text feature that is coming out in this body is cause and effect. So there's a cause, which is what the human is doing. And as a result of what the human does, and something happens, which is the effect, right? And as a result of the humans cutting down the trees or logging, it has destroyed the animal's habitat. All right, so that's another thing that we look at when we're writing our non-fictional summary. So we unpack the prompt, and once we unpack the prompt, we move to the source, and then we start trying to find out what, basically from unpacking the prompt, we would have known what information to include in our writing, but we can't just write these information. We have to go back to our source, refer to the source, and read the source now, and then code these evidence that we're seeing in the source, and then use this information in our writing. So let's see how we can code the evidence, or we can organize the evidence using a table. So we've already coded the evidence, and let's see how best we can organize it using a table. So let's organize the evidence. So when we organize the text evidence, we're organizing the information from the source into a table format or a tabular format. So we're looking at the human activities, and we're seeing them over there: logging, building cities, and making roads. And the effects that all of these activities have on the environment is that they destroy forest animals' habitat. Or another effect that we can put there, I don't have it there, is that it can destroy the plants in the forest, which are not even the tall trees itself, but even the smaller trees benefit from these taller trees. So once we have organized our evidence, we are going to be thinking about our evidence, thinking about it to say, what did I read just now? How does it matter to what I'm writing? Or what does it mean in my own words, right? So let's look at doing that, and we can do that with the same mean matter chart. Let's look at the same mean matter table. So when you think of how the evidence, when you think of what the evidence say, we can say what the source says, but not in our own words. We won't change that information as yet. We'll take it just as it is from the source. And I was explaining earlier, this is what most students do. They don't translate it into what it means to them or why it matters to their purpose. All they do is take the information as it is from the source and put it in their essay and then call that an essay. That's not an essay. That's plagiarizing other people's information, because that's not how you properly pull the evidence from the source. So we're going to be looking at that closer in our next slide. So when we say what it says is exactly as how we see it from the source, we're going to take a quotation from the source, and then what it means. The mean part is what does it mean to me? In my own words, what does this information mean? And then we think about matter, we're saying, how does it matter to my purpose for writing. All right, let's look at that closer. So we can think about our text evidence, and we can use a chart to show how that evidence connects to our writing. And this is the chart here. So in that column that says say, we're talking about the actual text evidence. So we can say in the source, or in source 1, in source 2. So this is what the source says. So in the source, it says, in some cases, logging has destroyed the forest animals' habitat. And I can go back to the source to show you that that's the last sentence here, that I didn't change it. I took it as it is from the source. So that's what the source says. Now, in my own words, what does that mean? What does in some cases logging has destroyed the forest animals' habitat? What does that mean? So I can say this means that when people cut down the trees, it destroys animal home. And how it matters to my purpose of writing. If we go back here, the purpose was that, let's go back to the prompt. The purpose was that we're trying to show how these activities that people engage in have been affecting the environment. So when we look back at our table here to say, how does this matter to our writing? We can say, this shows how the human activity of logging affects the environment by damaging animals' home, right? And this is how you're going to be writing your information in your writing. So this can be a paragraph in its entirety where you say, in source 1, it says, in some case, logging has destroyed the forest animals' habitat. When people cut down trees, it destroys animals' home, and the human activity of logging affects the environment by damaging the animal's home, right? Or this shows how. You can add that part there, and you can add the part that says this means. I'm gonna go over that one more time. But what I want to point out, it says, if it says in source, in the source, that means you're not plagiarizing the information, because you give the credit to the author to say that in the source, this is where I got the information from. It was not my information. I did not come up with this information by myself. I got it from the source, right? So once you put in the source, that is perfectly fine. For students who know about paraphrasing, the main part is when you're paraphrasing, where you're actually saying what it means to you and changing up the structure of the sentence a bit, right? So I'm gonna go over the information once more. And as I said, this can be an actual paragraph in your essay, right? So it's not okay to just say, in some cases, logging has destroyed forest animals' habitat, because that sounds like it's your idea. And if it's not your idea, you do not want to put it like that. You want to say in the source. So you're giving credit to the author to let the person know that's reading that this is not your information, you got it from somewhere. So this can be your actual paragraph to say, in the source, it says, in some cases, logging has destroyed the forest animals' habitat. This means that when people cut down the trees, it destroys animals' home. This shows how the human activity of logging affects the environment by damaging animals' home. When you write it that way, the person who's marking your paper clearly sees that you understand what you're doing, and you will get the full mark simply because, one, you have accredited that your information comes from the source, right? And then you have showed that you know what this means in your own words, and you have also showed that you know why it matters to your purpose of writing. So that will give you the clear marks coming out in the essay. All right, we're going to move into another part of writing non-fictional summaries, which is the introduction. So every piece of writing has an introduction, it has a body, and it has a conclusion. Now, what is the introduction? In the introduction, you should aim to hook your readers. I'm not sure if you have read something and once you read it, you didn't quite like what the introduction was, and as a result, you did not read the rest of the story or the rest of the paragraph, or even for watching a movie. You put in the movie or you put on something on YouTube and you're there, and once the introduction passes and you didn't see anything that stimulated you or hooked you, similar to how the fisherman throws out the hook and hook the fish and reel in the fish, that's what your writer is trying to do to you. Once you read whatever material you're reading or watching, the writer or the person who is creating that material wants to hook you and reel you in, and once that person reels you in, it's more than likely that you're going to stay for the remaining parts of the content, or you're going to read the remaining parts of the story. If that hook or that introduction was poor, then that's the deciding factor that might make or break your essay, because the person might not be interested to stick around and read what you have in the latter part of your essay. So you want to have a hook, and the hook can be a small story or a short story, which is called an anecdote, that connects your readers to the topics or surprising facts, or you can ask questions. These questions are rhetorical questions. You already are going to provide the responses for these questions, but the minute you're asking the reader a question in the writing there, and the reader has to think about the answers, then you're already hooking them, right? So other than the hook in the introduction, you need a brief definition about who or what your topic is. And you must aim to do this without mentioning the word important. Sorry, I went ahead of myself. So for the brief definition, that's where we are. You must give a short meaning about who or what your topic is. And you're supposed to pretend as if you're explaining to somebody who has never heard about it, right? So let's think about computer. We can say that a computer is a device that you use to communicate, to calculate, right? And you can give a short meaning about the computer. We're going to look more at a definition in the example introduction that I'm going to be showing in the next slide. Other than your definition, you have to provide an important, why are you writing about this topic? You need to inform the reader why your topic is important. And this is where I was speed tracking. You must try to do this without mentioning the word important. For the introduction also, you must let your reader know what are the subtopics or the subsections that you will be writing about later in the body. And yes, all the introduction that you're writing has to have these 4 features. If these 4 features are not in the introduction, then it's not a well-constructed introduction. So we want to have our hook, and that stands for H. We want to have a definition, that's D. We want to have the importance, that's I. And we want to have our subtopics, that's S. So we can shorten the features of the introduction by calling them H, D, I, S, the hook, the description or the definition, and the importance and the subtopics. Let's move on to the sample body. So we said that the introduction is a strong start. This is important because you want to hook your readers. You can use a short story connected to your topic. You can use surprising facts. You can use onomatopoeias, which are sounds. These are words that show sounds such as boom and crash and clang and ping. All of those are onomatopoeias. And in your definition, you want to give a brief description of what or whom your topic is about. You want to inform the reader about why your topic is important, and you want to let your reader know about the subtopics or the subsections that are going to be coming out later in your body. Let's look at this sample introduction. I hope it's clear for everyone to see. So in the introduction, we have the part there in blue to be the hook, and it's the rhino, Dr. Octopus. The lizards are trying to kill you. No, this isn't a crazy day at the zoo. It's just a regular day in the life of Peter Parker, also known as Spider-Man. From that first sentence, I was already hooked because it was a short, spicy story that really reeled me in. And I wanted to learn more or wanted to read more about what I was seeing there. For the brief definition that's there in green, it says Spider-Man is a fictional character created by Marvel Comics. For the importance that's there in purple, and this is informing the reader why the topic is important without using the word important. So we said, since his creation, he has gone on to become the most popular character for the company, selling millions of issues over the past 60 years. And the latter part are the subtopics, and the subtopic is not the entire sentence. The subtopics are parts of the sentence. It says some of the most vital things to know about Spider-Man are his powers, his costume, design, enemies, and his origin. So those are the actual subtopic. His powers, that's one subtopic. So you'll have a paragraph on his powers, or you might combine two things in the paragraph. You might talk about his powers and his costume design, but those are the things that are going to be coming out in the body: his powers, his costume design, the enemies, and his origin. All right, let me go back to the slide. Oh, somebody in the YouTube chat says, would we always have to give credit to the author in all pieces of writing? Yes, if you're pulling that information from the source, you have to give credit to the writer. Otherwise, it's known as something what we call plagiarism. Plagiarism is using somebody's information or bringing across somebody's information as if it's your information. So you do need to credit the author. It's not your information. And back then, when we didn't know what plagiarism was, we could have used people's information, but that is literally a thing that you can be dragged to court for if the person is really serious, because that is their content, that's their information, they created it, and you're not allowed to use it unless you tell them that you're using it or you make reference to them. So you do need to credit the author. All right, let me jump back into the slide. All right, so after the introduction, we're going to be compiling our body, and the body is the paragraphs that will appear after the introduction. Let's look at the goal of the body. The goal of the body is to use a variety of text structures to teach and inform your reader about your subtopics. So the different text structures are compare and contrast. When you're comparing two things, the similarities and the differences. Cause and effect, when you're presenting a cause and showing what happens as a result of that cause. Order and sequence, which is basically following steps from the beginning to the end in a particular manner, which is the sequence. And then problem and solution is that when you're presenting a problem and showing a solution. Most movies are like that, where they present a problem and they do a solution, or most books are like that, when they present a problem and at the end of the problem, especially mystery books like Nancy Drew and the Hardy Boys book, where they're presenting a problem and then at the end they give you a solution. And then the descriptive or the description text structure is basically giving a description of whatever is taking place. So these are all great tools to be using in your body. Also in your body, you should use titles for your subtopic or subsection, and these are great for keeping your writing organized. And also you should be using text evidence to show that you have done your research. Now, if you have a writing and it doesn't include anything from the source that you're presenting with, that's not a good writing, because it shows that you didn't research about what you did. And particularly in your writing, and I would have learned more about that when I was actually, well, I'm actually still doing my master's, but upon completing some of my assignments for my master's course, I was taught that your information is not validated, right? That's basically your opinion. When you can back it up by evidence from other sources, that shows that your information is factual. So it's not that they don't want to hear what you have to say in your writing, but they want to hear what you have to say backed by what other people said. So that shows more credibility about what you wrote. So let's look at the features of the body. You're going to label each subsections or subtopics with a title. You're going to use multiple signal words, and some signal words we're going to look at those in the body. Or signal phrases in each subsection, and you're going to use specific examples to give more details. You're also going to make a connection with what you already know. And I think we're pretty good at doing that. And you're going to cite the text evidence to support your topic and say in your own word what is meant by the text evidence. And I think we would have done something like that in the same meaning and matter chart that we did just before we moved into the introduction. So let's look at the sample paragraph, the sample body. It says, one of the most important things to understand about Spider-Man are his powers. So this paragraph is about one of the subtopics we had looked at in the introduction, which is his powers, and we call this one Spidey powers. So that the labeling of the subtopic, right? So that's in yellow. We're looking for the information in green now. Those are the signal words, sorry. And those are due to the fact, similar, and like. Let's look at how they use specific examples to give more details. So it says, for example, this is about the weight of a full-size car. So that's how they give more example. And I'm going to read the entire paragraph and tie everything together. I'm just pointing out the different features first. And then we're looking at how they cited the text evidence to support the topic. In red, it says, according to source one, real spiders are stronger than their size. And source two says, so you're seeing where they're accrediting the source. They're saying this information did not come out of my head. It came from source one and it came from source two. So it says, source two says, it is likely that he can lift over 3 tons. And let's see how we can say in our own word what is meant by the text evidence. It says, for example, this means that Spider-Man has the same type of strength as a spider. So let's look back at the paragraph in entirety. So it says, one of the most important things to understand about Spider-Man are his powers. Due to the fact that he was given his powers by a radioactive spider bite, many of his powers are similar to those of a spider. One of his powers is super strength. According to source one, real spiders are stronger than their size. This means that Spider-Man has the same type of strength as a spider. Just like how ants, I think we skipped out that part, was making the connection with what you already know. So making the connection with what you already know, it says, just like how ants are able to lift objects that are many times their body weight, Spider-Man is also able to lift things that are far greater than him. And I think we missed out a signal word there. Also is another signal word. And it said, source 2 says that it's likely that he can lift over 3 tons. For example, This is about the weight of a full-size car. Spider-Man's amazing strength makes him one of the most powerful superheroes. So that is a properly constructed body because one, it labeled the title. Two, it used the multiple signal words. We were able to use examples and make the connection with what we already know. We were able to cite the text evidence, but also say in our own words what is meant by this text evidence. All right. If you're not doing the body in this way, it is not a properly constructed body and you won't receive the full marks, simply. And as I said, even though the PEP examination has not been out there for a long time, the ministry is expecting you to be industrious, to be assiduous and want to find out the information. So they're not necessarily going to mark you on the fact that you did not know this information. They're expecting the time you have, you're going to research and find these information so you're able to do it in your writing, all right? Finally, we look at the conclusion. And the end is here, and we're almost to the end of our session as well. But this is the conclusion. It is all about reviewing and giving the reader a call to action. So the conclusion begins with a wrap-up phrase. You remind the reader about the different subtopics that you covered and you reinforce them, how or why your topic is important. You're also going to be suggesting a way for the reader to become involved with or experience your topic, and you're going to recommend a way for the reader to learn more about the topic. So let's look at the sample conclusion. Again, the features are begin with a wrap-up phrase, remind the reader about the different subsections that you covered, reinforce how and why your topic is important, and then you're going to suggest a way for the reader to become involved or experience your topic and recommend a way for the reader to learn more about your topic. So let's look at the sample conclusion. The wrap-up phrase there is in red. It says that by reading this essay, so we're wrapping up, you have learned about Spider-Man. They're telling you about the subtopics now, his powers, origin, enemies, and movies. Through the past 45 years, Spider-Man has appealed to generations and fans and shows no sign of fading. That's the importance. And a great way to become a new reader would be to start with Amazing Spider-Man issues 221 through 225. So that's suggesting a way for the reader to be more familiarized or to experience the topic, which is Spider-Man. This is a great starting point for new readers because these issues do a great job of showing the many interesting sides of both Spider-Man as well as his enemies. And the latter part there says, if you would like to learn more about Spider-Man, reading the Marvel Encyclopedia or checking out marvel.com are both excellent sources. So that's suggesting or recommending a way for the reader to learn more about your topic. Right? So those are the three things that you want to include in all of your writing: the introduction, the body, and the conclusion. I have a little activity there. I'm not going to look at it yet. I'm going to jump past it and then look at the latter part of the writing process. So the latter part of the writing process is planning the writing task. So we have to plan our research information report. And I'm going to be using a graphic organizer to plan my writing so you can observe clearly. I'm not sure I'll be able to write the words and the phrases to completely organize it in the entirety, although it's there, but I'll just go through the different parts of what you're supposed to do when you're planning your writing. Let's look at the graphic organizer. I hope it's clear. So when you're using the graphic organizer to plan or write your essay, again, you're going to be looking at the introduction. And remember that introduction has the HDIS, the hook, the definition, which is the explanation of the topic, the I, which is the importance, why the topic is important, and S, which are the subtopics. So in your introduction, those things have to be coming out. For your body, you're going to have to label your subtopics. You're going to have to cite evidence from the text, use the examples, make connections, use text evidence, and say in your own word what those text evidence means. And you can do that by using the same in matter chart. And we're seeing there that information is repeated 3 times, 1, 2, 3. So it means that for your essay, a typical essay, it will have 3 paragraphs in the body. And finally, what we just looked at was the conclusion. So in your conclusion, you should have your wrap-up phrase, and then reminding the readers of your different subtopics, why the topic is important, and another wrap-up phrase. And then suggest how the reader can learn more about your topic, all right? And if you're doing all of these things in your essay, you are guaranteed to get 100% simply because you're constructing a well-written research or a well-written non-fictional summary, all right? I'm going to jump back to the activity here, and I don't have enough time to do the activity, but I'm going to leave that on the screen, and you can take a screenshot or take a picture of it and do this activity on your own. This slide will be made available on the website. I'm going to see how best I can share it on the social media platforms, simply because you would want to go over this information. And if you're just hearing about the information, it might be new to you. And after a couple of attempts, you will be more familiarized with the information. All right. I'm just making the chat available for any questions. Does anybody have any questions whatsoever? In the chat, in our personal class, or on the YouTube. Yeah, so it's like stealing. I'm seeing somebody here. I'm really impressed with the participation on YouTube, particularly somebody with the name Cryptic J. I wish they had had their original name, but very good. Yes, so it's like stealing somebody's property if you do not use to say in source 1 or in source 2, right? Again, I'm very grateful for all the students who stayed around. I know you'd have learned a wealth of information from Dr. Bailey was here to when I started the latter part of the session. As I said, for most of this information, we're recording and it will be available on the YouTube. I wish for those who did not join that they were able to join, but we did some things today, and I know that the students who stayed in the class are leaving this class with a host of information that they can go back to their individual schools and teach the students and teach even the teachers, because as I said, some teachers are still struggling with the PEP examination. And I know that this is something that they can use for their beneficial purposes, just to in their real life activities and for long learning where they're going on to high school and university with these information garnered. Thank you again, everyone, for joining us. We are to the end of our session, and it has been such a host of information. I, for one, learned more information, and I concreted some of the things that I learned, and I hope that you would have learned as much as I learned too. Yes, I will share the PowerPoint. I will share the PowerPoint via the website. The PowerPoint will be on the website. I'm going to type in the website URL. I'm going to see how best I can share it on the social media platform. I'm not sure how it is. I'm going to share my email, not my number. I'm going to be sharing my email in the YouTube chat. The students in my class would have already had my number, and I'm already going to share the slides there with them. And again, reach out to anybody that you would have known, and just share the information that you learned with them. Information is done no justice when it's kept to yourself. Thank you very much for joining me again, and enjoy the rest of your afternoon. It was a very productive afternoon for me, and I hope it was for you as well. That's where we end for today. Thank you very much. Bye.